Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I'm creating in my large Dylusions journal this beautiful journal spread around the quote, "a moment in time." And these are some of the products I'll be using, a couple of stencils and some scrapbook paper. All of the products that I'm using will be listed in the description field. I didn't end up using that sticker sheet, but everything else that you're seeing I did use. That's some old music pages from my stash, as well as vintage book pages. And I've already pre-cut out that center page with the heart shape and cut my heart out of that floral, beautiful yellow floral pattern. And these are some of the products I'll be using: Lindy's Stamp Gang sprays, my TCW Light and Fluffy Modeling Paste, Liquitex Matte Medium to adhere all of my papers. I will caution you, I realized as I did this that by cutting out that heart out of the second page, I did weaken the seam on both sides, which I ended up gluing some pages together to fix that off camera. So here I'm just putting my papers down with, again, the Liquitex Matte Medium. And these are the originals of the music pages. I did scan them, so in this first bit I am using the originals and just applying those kind of randomly on the left hand side of the spread. I'll also be adding some vintage book pages as well, and scraps of that beautiful yellow floral viney paper that you saw earlier, just to kind of incorporate that color scheme into the whole piece, yellow being the primary color. Yellow is my favorite color. It's my happy color. So here I'm just prepping that heart for that pre-cut half heart shape that I showed you a moment ago. I'm adhering that again with the matte medium and going to give it a coat on the top as well. I wanted to have a chance to dry, as I'll be working on multiple pages here at the same time, which is a little bit tricky, as I have to allow for drying time so things don't stick together. And then I'll be going back here in a moment to adhere the additional pages, the book pages, and the scraps of this yellow paper. I love using the originals of these vintage music pages. They adhere just so smoothly and they just melt into the background, which I really love. I'll also mention that because I'm pretty much covering the whole surface with matte medium, I did not pre-gesso the pages. And looking back at this, I probably should have used some masking tape on that seam. That does help strengthen the binding a little bit. So I'll have to be adjusting my process as I continue to work in this journal because I'm losing some pages because of that. So again, here just adhering those bits of the yellow paper and my book pages. I have a lot of vintage books, so I am just using the originals here now, but I am scanning them so that I have copies for the future. Drinking some tea as I watch what I'm doing here and doing this voiceover. And you will be able to get the story behind this piece on my blog at B.Rebornart.com. That will post at the same time as this video. So I hope that you'll head on over to my website and read that blog. It's the story about kind of my process of walking through the dementia that my mother-in-law is going through, and some of my mom issues, and how that is being impacted by my being able to be there for my mother-in-law. So it's a tender thing. And here I'm going to apply some crackle paint to this left-hand side. And I'm just randomly spreading that out using a palette knife. It doesn't take a terribly long time to dry. I was preparing dinner while I was doing this page, so it worked out just fine for me to step away and let the crackle paint dry naturally. Sometimes I get a little impatient and I try to heat set it, and then I lose the crackle. So, and basically what I'm doing here is just kind of pushing back that background a little bit and creating some texture at the same time. And I did, that was dry when I did put that parchment paper on top of that page, as you just saw. And this is the page that I'm reserving for some private journaling around this story. And so I'm again, the primary color is yellow for this piece. Yellow for me represents life and joy. And so that's why I chose it and why I chose the paper. So I'm just applying a coat of this is Cad Yellow Hue in DecoArt Premium paint. And I used all of it, and my local store does not carry it anymore. So I will be picking some of that up online, as I really like the thickness of this paint. It's kind of in between a thicker acrylic and the fluid acrylic, which I really enjoy. And then here I'm using the last bits of that yellow paint to apply it to the back of the heart. I will be adhering a picture there also here shortly, but I wanted to give it a base coat. And then this bluish purple paper that has the diamond design on it is actually the back of that yellow floral paper. And I really wanted to tie in that deep color to create some contrast on the spread. And it really turned out well. There were many points in this process where I felt like it was kind of a hot mess, but I just kept pushing through and just kind of went with my heart. And I loved the result when I was done. And there I was just showing you that picture that I'm using for the back of that heart. And that is, I believe, a photo from Collage Pack from Sean Petit. I believe it was actually a free download, but I'll confirm that and put it in the video description when this video goes up. So I'm just applying that with the matte medium underneath the paper as well as on top to give it a good seal, as I will be doing some other things to that little heart flip out part. And then just trying to get off those little bits of glue that were clumping. And then I'm just going to cut around that heart shape to get that to fit to get the picture to fit the shape. And it does end up, because I didn't wait for it to dry, the paper did end up tearing, as you can see there, but I just used it to my advantage, which is one of the things I love the most about mixed media and collaging. You can pretty much fix anything, and I love the freedom of that. So I just kind of roughly tore that as the paper was wet and was easy to pull off. And so I really like how she's kind of looking off to the right-hand side of the page. And again, that's where I will be doing some journaling, as you'll see as the video unfolds here. And here is my favorite French script stamp, which I use so often, and just creating kind of a script border around that blue purple paper. I do end up coming back and doing the script on top of the blue also, because it was partially on there, partially not. So I wanted it to have some uniformity. And here I'm going to create a glaze using burnt umber and golden glazing medium. And I'm going to go ahead and give a coat of that glaze to the left-hand side of the page. I didn't want it to turn super dark necessarily, but I did want it to have that old feel as the story associated with this spread is about aging and about life and moments and things like that. So it seemed very fitting. And then I'm just going to wipe it back, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the right-hand side of the page. The glaze is dry very, very quick, so it does allow you the freedom to do that. I was actually moving just as fast as you're seeing. I dried a little bit, but not very much. And then giving it a coat there to the flap with the lady. And then again to the right-hand page. And it was at that moment that I discovered that my seams were really messed up in the center of this spread. And so I did glue this right-hand page to the one behind it to help stabilize the journal. And here I'm just given, since I had some excess of the glaze, I went ahead and gave another coat to the left-hand side of the page as well. Not wanting to waste that glaze. And so I just really wanted it to have a hint of that burnt umber color. I didn't want it to turn the project dark. I just wanted it to have kind of bits and pieces of that aging. And then there's just a close-up of that script, which I really love. And then a close-up of the crackle, which is just amazing. And it only, because I didn't do much of a glaze, it didn't completely get into all those cracks, but I really was pleased with the result. And then I decided to come in and use my favorite technique, which is to do some stamping on top of the texture. I believe that it creates, or I feel like it creates, a lot of interest to the piece with very little effort, and I really like it, and I do that often. And there's a close-up of that script on top of the texture. Really, really love that. And then there's that seam. It just really, cutting that heart out really weakened the seam. So I'll be changing how I do that in the future as I want to continue to create in this journal. These pages were very thick and heavy with all the mediums, but I enjoy it. I have a really hard time going light because I am, again, following kind of my artistic intuition. So, and here I'm using this kind of vine stencil. I think that's what it is. I'll have to look it up and get the actual title and maker of the stencil, but I'm just applying that to the top of that left-hand side of the page, and they're just using some parchment paper to mask that, the right-hand side, so I didn't get any of that texture paste. And again, this is the Crafter's Workshop Light and Fluffy Modeling Paste, and I love it because it dries super fast. And it's not as bulky as, say, Liquitex modeling paste. So I like it. And then I did dry that because I wanted to make sure that when I used this other stencil, I would have the freedom to kind of move about the page without worrying about that being wet. So I'm just applying that script. And this is the Art Is stencil, which I will also put in the description area. And so I just applied it there in just two little areas just to create a little bit of interest on the bottom of that page. I didn't add a lot of elements to this piece in terms of layers. And so that texturing with the stencil is really useful. And there I thought I was going to try to protect that right-hand side of the page with that towel, but it was going to be cumbersome to try to work around. So, and this is Lindy Stamp Gang Ponderosa Pine Olive. And I added some water to the top part of that page. And then I'm just dropping in that spray. Again, as I've mentioned in other videos, the Lindy's sprays are wonderful to work with, but they're very messy. And also, I've never swatched them out, and so I don't really have a true color sample of what these look like when they're on paper. And so I really wasn't really liking that bluish green color. So you'll see me come in and spice that up a little bit with some other color. And then there again, I'm spritzing the bottom of the page with water and applying, this is the Peony Scarlet Red, which is one of my favorite colors, and it really matched and tied in the piece really well with the flowers that are in that heart there on the right. And I'm using my finger to kind of spread a little bit of that color around. I don't really like a completely white space. And it is that peony red that I come up in the top part on that vine part. And I re-wet that, and I drop in some of that red as well, which created a darker green as well as some brown tones in the top part of that page, which turned out really well. This was one of those places where it felt like a hot mess because I didn't like what the color was doing on the top. I was fine with the red at the bottom, but I definitely needed to finesse the top section. And then I am drawing between layers there, and that's why you can see the color shift from that really bright wet red paint to the softer tone there on the bottom. And then here I'm coming in with the green. This is it's a lime. I don't have it in front of me, but it will also be in the description box. And so I really liked this. It was much brighter, and I went ahead and let it drip a little bit. And then if you can look at the script on the left-hand side, you can see how it's kind of making a brown. And that gave me the idea to go ahead and darken up some of that vine on the top using the Peony Scarlet Red. And that was a really good choice because it created some depth in the project that I think it lacked. And there you can just see I'm tipping the book just to kind of get that watered paint to spread around the piece. And so you can see again the shift there when it dries. And I didn't like the color, so I came in, I re-wet it, added the Peony Scarlet Red, and that's where I got that beautiful green as well as some brown tones. And that just really was perfect for the look that I was going for here. And just dabbing up a little bit of the excess, it's very watery, and so it'll take forever to dry on the page. And so there I'm going ahead and using that, the lime as well on the bottom, and just kind of fussing around to get all of the colors to look the way that I wanted them to look. So, and there's that's a piece of scrapbook paper from my stash. And again, the actual name of the paper will be in the description field. And I'm using my corner punch to go ahead and round the edges of that. And I'm going to be adhering this actually with my Liquitex Heavy Gel because there is so much texture underneath where I'm putting that paper. I felt like it would adhere better if it could kind of push down into that texture, and it worked out really well. And then I'm going to give it a coat of just the regular Liquitex Matte Medium over the top to give it a good seal. Often through these pieces, I don't know what my next step is going to be. And so applying the Matte Medium protects that layer, and so that it doesn't lift and it doesn't disturb what I've already created. And I just really love the tones on this page because you can see a little hint of the pink, the red, and the green really ended up being way more natural in color than it was previously. So I liked how it turned out. I do come in with some of the Art Alchemy waxes over those vines here in a little bit. And then here I'm going to go ahead and use my charcoal pencil to edge around everything on both of the pages. So I'm going to go around the heart, both front and back. I'm going to go around the edges of that bluish purple paper, as well as that rough, torn side of that yellow paper on the right to where I'm currently applying the charcoal. And then just applying it. And what this does is it helps it to, some of the parts of it to just kind of have more of that aged feel. In other parts, it creates depth and makes the elements pop off the page and look more three-dimensional than they actually are. So, and just coming down and creating a little bit of that dark around on the seam and around my lady. And then there's the shading on that rough edged paper. Coming around and doing the same on my quote here, A Moment in Time. And again, I hope that you'll check out the blog post. It's called Sunday's Art of Truth, dated to 2020. And it is about, again, it is about the story of my heart and my journey with my mother-in-law currently. So I hope that you'll check it out. I don't do Sunday's Art of Truth terribly regularly. I don't do it on a schedule because I do it as I'm inspired. And so I kind of don't force that. And then here I'm coming in with my Soho black soft pastel and creating my dark edge around the piece, which just really finished it off well. And then so I went all around the page, as you can see there. And then I'm going to apply this little old-fashioned bicycle. I felt like that heart needed a little bit of attention there. So I applied this bicycle with my Liquitex matte medium. And then once it was dried, I came through and outlined that as well with my charcoal pencil. And here is the Art Alchemy waxes. And these are just a phenomenal product. They create some interest on the page. And they have different colors depending on what surface you're putting them on or what color you're putting them on. And so this is Amethyst is the color. And I loved the purple tone that it created as it tied in the purple flowers that are on the heart paper, that tabby part, and also the purple flowers that are in that design. So it worked out really well. Applying a little bit of that also to the raised texture of that script that I used with the texture paste or the modeling paste. I did apply just a little bit on this right-hand side. I didn't want it to be overpowering, so I just kind of touched it here and there. And then there's a close-up of those vines with that wax, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. You'll be able to see close-ups in the still shots at the end of the video. And then here I'm coming in, like I mentioned before, with my charcoal pencil around that little cute old-fashioned bicycle. I really liked that and felt like it fit well with kind of the age of this spread as well as the story. So, and then here I was kind of fiddling around with how was I going to journal on that surface now that I had so much bulk underneath. So I grabbed a piece of paper and I went ahead and painted it also with my premium DecoArt Premium paint in the cad yellow hue. I barely had enough to finish this. And so again, I will have to get some more of that. I really like the color and I like the thickness of the paint. And so I'm just creating that yellow, again, that being my primary color. And then I'm going to come in with a burnt umber glaze after I get this adhered, and I'm going to, so it has that vintagey feel as well, but it doesn't have any texture on the paper, so that I will be able to freely write on that at a later time. So I did have to come in because I was putting this piece of paper over some bulky texture already. I did switch over and use my Liquitex Heavy Gel to really get that to stick, and kind of pressed and pushed and until I had a good contact between that top paper and the art journal page. And then that was the burnt umber golden fluid acrylic. And I mixed that with my golden glazing medium and created a glaze over just that yellow rectangular space. And then I don't wipe it back. I actually kind of pounce on it. That kind of gives it a mottled look, which I really liked, especially for this particular application. So it's kind of a vintagey yellow area for me to be able to write on. And then I came in, I used my golden fluid acrylic in the cadmium yellow medium, I believe, and just applied a little bit of that yellow to the left-hand side of the page to tie those colors together, since there wasn't any yellow represented on the left. So the piece turned out beautiful. Often they turn out better than I imagined. So I really enjoyed this process. I hope that you enjoy it too, and that you'll check out the blog post. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would be so honored if you did. I love creating inspirational art and inspirational tutorials to kind of give people an idea of how you can use art journaling to express emotion, to express a certain season that you are in your life. It's very healing, at least it has been for me. And so I hope that you find it inspiring and that you'll take that leap and give it a try. So, and then lastly, on that yellow rectangular piece of paper that I'll be journaling on, I wanted it to have a little bit of a flair. So I got out this heart stencil stamp, which I believe is from Unity Stamps. I believe it's one of their collections, but I'll have to confirm that in the video description. And there's just me showing you the breakdown of that spine. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.